Hi, everyone. Welcome to our personalized action planning session. Before we get started, you're going to need a couple of pieces of paper or a Word document open. And make sure that you're ready to write in some different colors, whether that means markers, pens, or highlighters next to you. Before we get started, I also want you to think about a really high-level theme. What would you like your action plan to be focused on? Are you going to be focusing on nutrition? Are you going to focus on education? Do you want to focus on movement? We don't want a really detailed, specific action right now. We just want a theme. What's the concept of what you would like to be working on? As we move through our process, we're going to be looking at context or givens, things that we know that are going to inform what we want to get done. Some of this is decisions made by other people that are outside of our control. We're going to think about victory. The day after you finish your plan, how does the world look different? Step 3 is reality, strengths, weaknesses, benefits and dangers of a successful project. Number 4 is commitment. What kind of a project are we willing to commit to? 5 is all about key actions that help us achieve the commitments we just set. 6 is a look at a calendar. 7 helps us coordinate the calendar. And in step 8, we reflect and resolve on what we've just decided to act on. So on your first piece of paper or in your Word document, I want you to write that theme you initially thought of. Right below it, write down this question. What key actions can we take to fill in the blank? This goes back to your theme. What key actions can we take to help improve movement and physical activity in our community? What key actions can we take to make sure education is equitable in our school? What key actions can we take to make sure the youth in our community access breakfast? Right below that, put 3 to 5 bullet points that answer the question, what decisions have already been made? So what key actions can we take to achieve a specific idea or improvement or change? Right below that, what are decisions that have already been made that we need to be mindful of? Or perhaps these are decisions that we believe we can influence and change. Next, you're going to be looking at victories. The day after you complete your plan, how will the world be different? How have you improved things for other people in your community? What do you see, feel, hear, smell, and touch? What have you touched? Who have you touched? And how is the community different because of these relationships that you've built? Take a moment. This list should have 10 to 15 ideas. Imagine that you're at a victory celebration. What are conversations that you're overhearing from other people? Or imagine that you're reading about your project in the newspaper. What has the newspaper editor said about you and your project? Next on the list, we're going to be looking at current realities. Number 1 is strengths. This is all about you. What are the strengths you bring to the design and implementation of this plan that are distinctly different than other people? Number 2 is weaknesses. Where are there gaps that you may require support from other people? Who are those people? Number 3 is benefits. What are the benefits of completing a successful action plan? What value have you brought to the community? 4 is dangers. What do you need to be mindful of if your plan is implemented successfully? Perhaps people keep requesting more, but you don't have time or resources to deliver on that. What are the dangers that you need to be mindful of? Next, let's think about commitment. So in light of what you know about your current reality, what kind of a project are you willing to commit to? This should be a list of 4 to 6 ideas. I'm willing to commit to a project that is inclusive of diverse voices. I'm willing to commit to a project that ensures equity and inclusion. I'm willing to commit to a project that is creative and bold. I'm willing to commit to a project that only lasts 3 months. What else are you willing to commit to? What are some of your guidelines and definitives to make sure that this work is completed appropriately? Now we're going to move into brainstorming. What are key actions to achieve your commitments? At this point, your job is to list 25 to 30 ideas. These actions should be very specific. The ideas should all start with a verb. You're going to do something. You're going to call someone. You're going to gather some kind of supplies. You're going to plan something. You're going to reserve space. Each of the key actions needs to begin with a verb. It shouldn't be a conceptual idea at this point. Make it action-based and a how. How are you going to achieve your commitments? Now that you have your list of brainstormed key actions, we're going to theme these. Take some time with your colored pencils, markers, pens, highlighters, whatever it is that you have with you, to group the tasks that you just listed into like task teams. Don't think about a name yet, just let any ideas that seem to resonate with each other naturally become a group. You can rewrite these into clusters like you see on the screen, or you can simply put a symbol or highlight them to create themes. Once you've finished theming each of the clusters, please put one word that describes the full cluster. You might have a cluster that represents communication. You might have another that represents engagement or invitations. Another one might be called resources. Now, I need you to take each of your clusters and you're going to name them very specifically. Get creative. So instead of resources, I might say something fun and creative like tools and tricks to get the job done. You're going to look at victory. For this very specific set of tasks, what does victory look like? We only want one victory. For example, if my cluster right now is about communication, I might have a creative name like calling all the cool kids. The victory would look like an established partnership between multiple organizations. That's also going to help you evaluate your task at the end of the project. For the launch, your job is to think about what action is going to launch the whole cluster and when. If I'm talking about partnerships, my first action might be to call someone who I know is very well networked. If I'm going to work on a community outreach project, perhaps I'm calling my public health director, Jill Bruns, next Tuesday at 4 o'clock, just to ask her help me brainstorm who else should I be talking to. Next is your timeline. Each of the bullet points within your cluster needs to be set up in a time frame. You've already decided how long your project is. Did you commit to a 6-month project, a 4-week project, or a 12-month project? Decide how you want to organize. Do you want it to be monthly, November, December, January, February, March? Or do you want it to simply be week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4? Determine when each of those key actions will be completed. Not when it starts, but when it gets completed. Next, identify who's going to lead and who do you need to help support. Finally, identify supplies, information, or other maybe financial supports that you need to accomplish this cluster. When you finished your first grouping, move on to the next one. Generally, it's best to start with the largest cluster first, so that when you're finishing and a little bit more exhausted, you're just looking at the smallest cluster to end with. Next, consider these questions to help coordinate your project. Review your victories and commitments. Do the key actions that you have listed on your calendar right now achieve the victories and commitments? Review your budget. Where will you find the finances or other resources that you need for the budget? You've identified who's going to lead and support each activity. Where are you going to document and journal your activities? And are the stages timely? Do you have the activities balanced over the entirety of the project? Or is it front-loaded or back-loaded? Next, let's take a minute to observe. Which 5 actions are the most important on this entire plan? If nothing else gets done, which ones absolutely have to be accomplished? Take a moment to reflect. Where are you concerned? Maybe you put a red exclamation point or a red circle around those. Where are you excited? Maybe you put a yellow star or a yellow circle around those ideas. Next, take a moment to think about the value that this plan is going to bring to your community. Write this out in 5 or 6 bullet points that can be translated into really clear sentences later on. Finally, what is the name of this outreach plan? If you'd like to add a logo or a symbol, feel free to do that as well at this point. On that note, here's to the crazy ones, the misfits. We see genius because people who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who do. Follow us at sweetwaterrevival.org or check us out. Our handles are SWR Leaders on Instagram and Facebook. Contact us if you need further support. Be well, my friends.